The other thing I want to talk about was this excellent twitlonger from lloD. I thought it was a good write-up overall. I thought it was a good write-up. And then also it sparked some good discussion. I thought that, like, this is like good discourse. Like, it sparked good discussion and like no one was toxic or whatever, and a lot of people made good points. I thought this was like a very nice Twitter thing happen. Even Leffen got involved, and I think Leffen made some good points too. I thought it was a nice little Twitter thing. And if people are curious as to this, why people hate Peach, there's a twitlonger. Okay, so the crux of this twitlonger is basically like, okay, why do people hate Peach? Well, here's the thing. First of all, I think this is a really brilliant point. The first thing he says is like, basically everyone fucking hates down smash, right? Everyone, when they were a noob, they jumped into Peach's down smash on the platform, they took 70 fucking damage and they died. Everyone has PTSD from that, so everyone has an innate amount of Peach hate in their heart. So you got to start with that. And so because Peach is so slow, she doesn't have an option that really effectively deals with the Fox pulling back. Like, she can't really beat dash back. She can't overshoot something to deal with, you know, a Fox that's running away or pulling back. And it's not just Fox, it's other characters neutral to the wall. Captain Falcon, Marth, Puff, right? Jigglypuff. And so she can make an extremely hard read on like the opponent's movement, which is kind of this point, but most of the time she's kind of just hanging out and outspacing the Fox coming in, and you're basically just catching the Fox coming in. And so there's two ways to kind of mentally assess what that means. If Peach is hitting the Fox coming in, does that mean that she made a galaxy brain read? Or does that mean, here, I think lloD even breaks these down. Peach players think they're so much better than the opponent every time they land a hit because of how many layers of mix-ups they have to win to land that hit. On the flip side, as the Fox player, if you're like trying to camp out the Peach or whatever, and you just decide, this is boring, I'm gonna run in, and you get hit by something, then that wasn't really that galaxy brain of an interaction at all. You know, the Fox just kind of got bored. And for what it's worth, I do think this happens a shitload. I think a lot, I mean, Melee's timer is 8 minutes long. And ultimately, I do think that in Melee, a lot of the time when you ask the question, especially in friendlies, but also in tournament, to be honest with you. What's up, Peter? I don't really hate Peach. A lot of the time in Melee, when you ask the question, like, why did that guy go in instead of camping when camping was more optimal? A lot of the time, it's literally because they got bored. I mean, literally, like, yeah, people could probably hang back a little more sometimes, especially in some of these matchups. But yeah, I am for PNW, and we had a lot of Fox Peach and PNW back then, so I've definitely thought about this matchup a lot. And this is something that I think gets addressed in some of these. I really like Laudanis' reply, Big Brain. The one thing I think I disagree with is like 90% of the time, at pretty much all levels of play, the Foxes are actually right. The Peaches is winning because she made 5 layers of reads. She's winning by outweighting him until he stops doing it. So the Fox is camping, and then eventually he's like, man, f it, I'll go in. Like, what's the worst? What's the worst that can happen? You dare across the screen, you get down smash. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That is a thing. And then you f***ing stop. Yeah, I mean, that just happens. That's like, it's true. I mean, I don't know how to slice it. I think Melee players are kind of impatient. I think Peach players are kind of impatient. I think most Melee players are kind of impatient. I think that it's hard to be super patient in a game like Melee because it's an 8-minute timer and there's a shitload of movement, and you can be very, you know, you can approach in so many different ways, and you can drift, you can aerial and drift back, or you can do a running grounded approach. So it's just, so you're not as telegraphed, or there's so many different ways to approach that I don't even think it's a bad option a lot of the time. I think it's just, and yeah, I do think that generally speaking, I think the kinds of people that want to play Melee are the kinds of people that don't really enjoy camping people out for 8 minutes. Even the Jigglypuffs. Like, there's one Jigglypuff that actually wants to time people out for 8 minutes, and it's Michael. Like, that literally even the Jigglypuff players like aren't that patient in Melee. So, you know, yeah, I don't know. I think that's, I think it's just true. And I do think that at a high level, I think when the matchup gets really, really cool, is when the Peach does need to make a Galaxy Brain read. Or when the Fox is actually approaching, but also not messing up much, and the Peach actually does have to play a losing scramble game, as opposed to like, oh, me Fox, me Naren, me miss L cancel, me get down smash, right? Like, the matchup gets really cool to watch and really fun, and like, you really start to appreciate the matchup at that high level where the Foxes aren't messing up, and when the Peaches do want to win neutral, they actually have to make those 5-layer reads that lloD is talking about. I don't think that happens at every level of play. And so I think that most Peach players I think most Bleach players that think that they made a 5-layer read because the Fox nared across the stage, they're probably wrong. It probably wasn't that complicated of a read. And then on the flip side, I think for Fox players, I think that most Fox players that have so-called protagonist syndrome, which is that, well, I get to set the pace of neutral, so I'm just going to go in, and if I mess up when I go in, ultimately, I deserve to be upset and salty about that, and if you down smash me because I missed my L cancel or whatever, well, you shouldn't be happy about that, because, you know, like, if that's you, and if you're missing your L cancels, or if you don't know how to approach Peach, you should just camp more and suck it up. You know, you literally should just camp more. I fully agree that I think that a lot of Fox players have a bad mindset when it comes to matchups like these, and I think it kind of comes back to the thing we were talking about with the remember we were talking about like what makes people upset, like what makes people salty. I don't remember if this was the video where I was roasting the Crimson Blur or not, but I remember we were talking about like what makes people rage in fighting games and in Smash and Melee. And I think like one of the things that makes people rage is like the whole concept of like, that shouldn't have worked, but I got. I think that from the Fox's perspective, it's like, damn, that shouldn't have worked. And when I say that, I mean, you waited on the other side of the screen and didn't do anything for 30 seconds. And I approached like a fucking idiot, and it was a bad idea, and I got bodied for it. And maybe they're right. I mean, maybe these Fox players are right. Maybe it shouldn't have worked. But ultimately, if something shouldn't work, yeah, I mean, the onus is on you to make it not work, right? Whether that's approaching better or it's approaching less, i.e. camping more, that's kind of on you as the Fox player. Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally reasonable that the Peaches feel the way they do, and I think it's totally reasonable that the Foxes feel the way they do. Some other good responses. I think it was really cool that Leffen was basically kind of comparing Peach to a grappler, which I think makes sense. Low mobility, but high damage. High HP and same close quarters, but bad neutral, and you know. And Leffen said some other stuff about kind of her implementation, like the way she kind of works out. I think Nikki made some good points too. Certain interactions just feel kind of bad where like you can float it. I'm sure you guys experienced, you float at a certain height as Peach, and then even if you get hit, if you're at a low enough percent, you're actually like minus, or you're plus like on hit almost, it feels like. Like they hit you, but because you were floating at that height, you get to just like basically take the hit and then like land with an aerial, and you bear them out of their approach anyway, and then you get a grab. And that feels kind of, you know, like sometimes if you're not really experienced at the matchup, sometimes you don't even really know when you have an opening. And I think that gets a lot of people, and I think that feels frustrating. Yeah, I think hit him with the smash. I thought that said hit him with a down smash, which I think is an even better name for the contest discussion. But I think hit him with the smash is basically on the money here. But yeah, I encourage everybody to check all this stuff out. I thought it was a pretty dope little breakdown. And ultimately, I think both sides are kind of right in their own way. I don't think the Foxes are wrong for feeling like, ah, shit, you only won neutral because I got bored and ran in like an idiot. And I think the Peaches are also, you know, very much justified. I mean, if the only way they get a hit is by catching their opponent's approach, then, because I've been there. I used to play in Guilty Gear, the old days. I played Dizzy in Guilty Gear. Let me tell you, I would fight these Chip Zadoff players that were just teleporting and zooming all the fuck over me, and nothing felt sweeter as a Dizzy player in Guilty Gear XX than getting that one juicy hit and just getting to fucking run my game plan because they did the wrong teleport, or they like, you know, did the wrong approach and like, you know, happened to get hit by my fish or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that feels good. Like, I don't just play fast characters. I've played slow setup-based characters too, and it is very satisfying. It is very, very satisfying, and you do feel very Galaxy Brain when you win neutral against a Chip. Okay, Magi's finally in chat, so I'm gonna let her in.